Hawkissimo, and in this video we're going to be talking about Clash, some of the strategies and tactics that you can use to improve your game in this mode. Before I hop into the map though, let's talk about what happens immediately when you go into the mode and you're in the God selection, and you want to be thinking about synergies, both within your team and then when the enemy team is visible, what kind of synergies they have going. So for that, let's hop into the God screen and let's talk about some of the super basic setups that you can see. Obviously, you're looking to build a team that has balance, and the best balance are those teams that have a god from each of the categories: Assassin, Guardian, Hunter, Mage, and Warrior. Why? Well, because you need that mix of both physical and magical that comes to your team. You want a mix of tanks and offense, single player damage gods with area of effect gods. You're really looking for those synergies, and by having one from every class, that's how you best accomplish that. So I have videos that talk about the roles and responsibilities of each of the god classes, so I'm not going to belabor that, but we're going to come back to the point that I started, which is how can I, during the God selection screen, be using my mic to talk with the other players about setting up combos, right? So let's talk about one of the easiest people to combo with, and that's Odin. So Odin has his ultimate, which is the Ring of Spears. And what I like about this ability is you drop that 30 radius circle in which your enemies are trapped, and unless they're using jumps or relics to get out of that, they're kind of trapped. Forget about the debuff on healing and attack speed reductions. Let's just talk about controlling where the enemy is able to move, and or drawing out the need to build relics to specifically counter this guy. So when I see an Odin on my team, I start to immediately think about, well, how can I combo into his ultimate, A, to get him his stacks, but B, to successfully flourish in the god role that I'm picking. And so let's talk about mages, for instance. You know, obviously if Anubis breathes his ultimate into that cage, that is a lot of damage on opponents that have very little maneuverability space. If I obviously drop my slow in there, that makes it even easier. They have the healing debuff, so he absolutely wrecks. Apois, Agni, both can rein in their stuff really easily. Even Change's 1, is putting that beam out, and her 3 is putting that radius heal / damage in an area that helps the allies and hinders the opponents. We think about Hades, a fantastic combination with that. When he goes into his ultimate, you're obviously having, again, that 30 unit radius, so it matches perfectly with Odin's spear, where you're sucking them in. So now, if they needed to, if they're trying to counter build, right, now they need both purification to step out of your CC on your ultimate, but then they also need the relic just to step out of the Odin cage and or have a jump. So you're starting to make them really drain resources just on that. And if they don't, they start to get melted. So continuing along, it's not the best combo, but certainly Kuka putting his abilities in there helps him confirm. I particularly like more Kuka comboing with Hades, because that they're in a fixed point, and so it's easier for him to hit his ult in the same way that if they were trapped by Nox, he'd be able to confirm. Poseidon's ultimate fits very nicely inside of the Odin, or if you want to think about it as comboing with Hades, those sorts of things are the synergies that we're looking for. Vulcan has that incredible ultimate that hits for ridiculous damage, 880 at 5 ranks with 130% scaling, The problem is that, you know, you only start at 60% strength, and you've got to hit with that range. Well, if you're playing with an Odin and he's using his VGS or mic to communicate ultimate is ready, makes it really easy. You go ahead, you hit your triangle, you're lining up your shot, you're waiting for the cage to go up. Immediately, just shoot that ultimate. You're gonna puke all kinds of hell damage on them, and guys are gonna melt. That's just the reality. Zeus obviously combos really well. Zhang Kui putting down slows in Hunterville. Artemis releasing Tusky into that. CERN's ultimate fits really nicely. Cupid has the cripple on his ultimate, meaning they can't use movement effects once that goes off, so forget about that jump. Hao Yi's ultimate fits really great in there. Medusa's stun on top of a Hades ultimate is toxic. Let's see. Xbalanque using darkness to set up Odin, making it easier for him to cage, or for Hades. You know, these are the kinds of synergies that you're looking for. Coming in, obviously, Ares, Hades, Odin, fantastic combo. Substitute out Hades for Zeus, you're perfectly good, or the other gods that I mentioned. Add in the hunters that I talked about, you're golden. So those are the types of things that you really want to be looking for. Heck, even Kuzenbo bouncing people around inside of that cage. But what you don't want to do is push them out of Hades, right? So if Hades goes in and then Kuzenbo pops his ultimate and actually pushes the enemy out of your ult, you're going to want to kill him. And you're going to feel like a jerk if you're the Kuzenbo. So don't do that. Again, always be thinking about how these abilities combo during God's selection. Ymir going into his ultimate, into any of that stuff is just stupid damage. In Assassin World, you don't tend to have as many combos that work well with some of the things that I've talked about, simply because by and large they're 1v1 gods. But there are, of course, exceptions. Humbot's ultimate, make him dance around uncontrollably in there. Fantastic. Daji popping up her ultimate and starting to throw out chains. Another way to lock him down in there. Kali flipping her ult and buzzsawing away like mad certainly works. If we're talking about folks like Hades or Nox, you know, where they're frozen, gives Mercury an easy path to just hit his ultimate through there. Niza to hit his ultimate through there. Rat to come jumping in from the sky. Thor to come jumping in from the sky. Than to come jumping in from the sky. Susano to throw in his ultimate. So those are the types of things that you really want to think about as you're putting together your team. And, you know, I used Odin as the example, but I talked about a lot of other combos. It doesn't matter who you're building around. The idea is, are there opportunities to build around? And should I be changing my initial thought, like, hey, I thought I was going to play Serket, but based on who I see over there, you know, I think I can get better utilization out of another assassin. For instance, if I saw Hao Yi, I'm sorry, not Hao Yi, Habois, Hebo, or Bacchus, instead of running Serket, that's a fantastic opportunity to use a Willix. Why? Because they both have knockup, and knockup makes a Willix much easier to hit her ult. So these are the types of things that you want to be thinking about. All right, so on to the Clash map itself. I want to actually come into just easy practice because I don't want to be distracted by enemies or allies trying to do their funky thing. I want to just hop right in and talk about the map itself. So for that reason, I'm just going to choose an assassin that has good maneuverability so I can fly around the map and show you guys some basics about the map, where to ward, how you should initially deploy. So again, right now I'd be looking, I'd say, oh wait, I have Hebo, he has knockup, great. that's going to help a Willix. You know, hey, Herc is going to knock people up. Great. You know, those are two people I'm going to want to be in their lane. I'm not so interested in being in the lane with Ymir. And, you know, no offense, Ymir, but it's not helping me as the assassin do what I want to do. So I'm looking to set up. On the enemy team, you know, hey, I see they have a healer, so should I be thinking about building Brawler's Beat Stick in a little bit earlier into my build, or build it if I don't normally build it? Of course, as an assassin, you should probably be building it just because of 40 power, 15 pen, but that's a whole other issue. But particularly when I see that they both have Chang'e and Guan Yu, you know, this whole party better be thinking about anti-heal, or that other team is going to cause significant problems. So you want to start thinking about that. All right, so let's talk about initial deployments. And no, this is not how I would normally build the character. I want to be able to just fly around the map. So I think it's very important for the allied team to come out very quickly. You don't want to waste any time in the store. You don't want to stop at blue buff, either this one or your other one over here where I'm pinging the map, right? You want to immediately go and contest red as a team. Why give them their 2 blues plus the red and fall behind? So I like to drop a ward right on this. I like to, you know, say attack middle, you know, be pinging the map, get these people on with the plan. Start that damage out before the enemies have even come to lane. You know, very useful. You're trying to get this advantage, and trust me, if there had been one other person, we would have had this done before it had even, the minions had come halfway through. Obviously, with bots, it's going to happen every time, but something to think about. All right, so in terms of ward, this is a nice offensive stance. I have perfect visibility for them scrolling through here. I'd kill them, except that's not what I'm trying to do. So I don't want them to be able to rotate from left to right or right to left without the map pinging, so I think dropping that center ward becomes very important. In terms of the second ward, if you place it here, it gives you opportunities to set up jumps and attacks through walls. You see, because I have my allies over here, I can start lining things up to come in from behind them, start getting some stuff off. GT, what's up? So I'm sort of expanding on the video that I did yesterday talking about Clash. So this would be the offensive setup. You know, hopefully your allies are also dropping wards. You should light this map up. There's no reason for the enemy to ever have the ability to maneuver around the map in a way that causes surprise for you or your allies. For the low cost of 50 gold to have that visibility to, you know, let's think about it proactively, set up a kill or defensively to prevent you or your allies from getting yanked. This would be where I'd want to place the other ward, you know, after hitting mid, if I was worried about their assassins coming in and ganking my left or my right. All right, so, excuse me, let's pretend that we're at the very beginning of the game. We've stripped red. What should you do next? Well, if you and an ally or your whole party have done that, what I like to do very quickly is immediately rotate left to take a look and see whether they've started their camp. If they haven't, aggress on it. If you can get both your blue buffs for your team and have 2 or 3 of you take red and then immediately pop over and take their blue, you've got 4 buffs to their 1. That's a tremendous advantage, and obviously if this was start, I'd still have red. I'd be telling people to take it. I'd ping the map, let them know that it was available, and start to return to lane. So these are the sorts of things you want to think about. Now, other types of warding. Let's say that you guys have started to get pushed back a bit, and you're like, hey, Hawk, what do I do in that kind of situation where, you know, we've taken a bit of damage and we find ourselves pushed back? Well, let's simply return home to refresh our relic and pick up 2 manual wards, and also, whoops, pick up some more move speed boots. No problem. So let's talk about some defensive warding that takes place. So again, defensive warding can occur simply because they have skilled assassins that are getting the ganks. You guys died a little bit early and they have level advantage. You know, what do you do about it? Well, for left lane, dropping one here provides a lot of value. No longer can they be sitting here like this, waiting to use a jump or other effect to come in behind you, pop the thing, pop the ult, you know, and start wrecking havoc on you. So those are the sorts of things that you want to be mindful of. Likewise, the opposite on the right lane. If you're worried about them invading your blue, rather than dropping it on blue, drop it like right here or even a little bit out like this. The point is you don't want them to be able to step over here at all without you knowing. And defending just visibility to this rock provides value. You see how I can see them because I have enemy minions there? Well, you know, you don't want to have that kind of nonsense occurring, and those wards can prevent that. So those are 2 very obvious ones. Well, let's say you lose a tower. At the point where you lose a tower, you darn well better be thinking about wards. So if it was this right tower, you want to stop incursions down this path. So that's one good spot. That gives you immediate notification that they're coming through, particularly if you've also warded high. And by high, I mean that you have this spot warded, so they can't come through the high pathway, sneaking around your blue buff to come in behind you while you're fighting, like where Hark was, and suddenly come in behind you, starting to pop a whole bunch of abilities on you, vomit, cause all kinds of hell, right? So that would be where you'd want to do it there. Obviously, the reverse is also true. But I'm going to go a step further. At the point where that's an issue and you've lost right lane, you also really, really, really want to stop rotations through your jungle. So this becomes a spot. So theoretically, you get your team to hit the high right. You hit the actual spot where your tower was to prevent rotations coming through there. You'll know that, oh god, we have a big ass minion wave, we got to stop that. But you also want to stop additional pressure from coming here. You do not want to lose this tower. And when your allies are overly focusing on that right lane, when you've lost that tower, you're probably doing a disservice. What you really want to try and do is defend this tower both from minions as well as enemy gods aggressing, so that you don't go down 2 towers. So let's go back again and continue some warding dialogue. So again, because I have this cruddy relic, and by the way, I don't believe that this is ever a good buy, it takes too darn long for it to pay back. 400 gold, you only get 2 uses, that's 100 per back. Wards last for 2 minutes a pop, so you're talking about an awful, whoops, gonna die. You're talking about an awful long time before that chalice starts to make good on the initial investment. You're better off buying individual wards. Okay, so obviously if this had been the tower that had been lost, you're trying to prevent, and do you see how the blue area means that they can't come anywhere over in this area without tripping the ping. They can't sneak up along this wall without being in the blue. They can't cut around wide. So you don't want to sloppily drop wards. You want to really utilize the full area of that blue radius. If you've lost both lanes, you obviously want to hit the left ward where I did. You want to hit that center high spot of your jungle, whether you're dropping it where I did first or slightly here to prevent that full rotation. You saw how immediately it pinged. You know, ideally you drop the other ward over here, and you know, again, I'm one player, so I can't fully light up the battle. You can only have 2 wards on, regardless of whether you have the chalice or not. But at that point, you also want to worry about jungle invades, and you want to worry about them coming in behind. You know, if those enemies were my allies fighting to defend, and they came over, they could start to aggress in this fashion, surprise the hell out of you, and get a kill on your ally. So you want to stop that nonsense, and you want to, well, mama, don't kill me. And so you do that by warding your low jungle. And again, I'm always talking about from the perspective of my base when I'm having that dialogue. So this prevents, this is the highest that I would, well, it's both the highest and lowest, right? I want it to come all the way. I don't want them to be able to rotate through in any point without having visibility. I am willing to acquiesce this, although again, if I have a ward over here, then that will prevent that. So really, you got to start thinking about using your VGS to start spamming wards, letting your allies know, start pinging where you want them to drop it. Keep in mind that you can start to say, you know, ward here, and show them where specifically you're looking for a ward. All right, other map items to talk about. At the 10-minute mark when this guy spawns, if you're in this area, he makes a sound, he spawns, and if you're in here, you are going to take a ton of damage. If you're at all hurt, you're going to get nuked and die. That's just the reality. So you want to be very mindful of the timer on this map when rotating through mid to ensure that he doesn't surprise you with stupid damage. Now, if you had a ward literally where he spots up, he eats it, but if it's slightly off center, he doesn't. So let's talk about another ward strategy. You notice if I drop a ward right there, and I drop another ward right there, I've effectively warded the whole ability to rotate through this area, but I've also started to ward the pathway into my jungle area from a defensive position or an offensive. I don't like that as much as using the triple ward, for the simple reason of, let's look at the map. Can the enemy rotate like this without tripping my ward? Absolutely. So I don't find that as efficient a ward use, but there are times where I see people do it, so I thought I'd mention it. You know what, let's keep this tower up just a little bit longer so I don't have to deal with fire minions. Ignore them, clear the minions, clear the minions. They slow their progress on it. Didn't work, they still popped it, but that's the theory. Alright, so coming back here, refreshing our wards. For that matter, you know what, let's do this. Let's pick up the sentry ward. The sentry ward is really a iteration of your basic ward, right? So I said 2 minutes before, I'm sorry, it's 3 minutes. The only difference between these two wards is the cheap ward gives you the visibility. You know, it does respect line of sight, so where you place it is important for seeing through. You know, you can't see through walls. You're using that blue effect in, but it can be nuked. You can destroy an enemy ward if you see them drop it by using a sentry ward. So if I pick up a sentry ward, and let me just add even more move speed, because why the heck not? If I had been standing in the area when the enemy had dropped a ward, for a second or two, I would have seen this icon appear, and then it will disappear. That tells me that they have a ward in the area. So as long as I drop a sentry ward where I know that my blue area encompasses theirs, like this one, had that been an enemy ward, it would now be visible and I would be able to physically attack it and destroy it. So you'll see that used after the 10-minute mark in Conquest all the time. Excuse me, not as common in some of the casual modes, although certainly if you're seeing enemies drop wards through on the red buff area, counter warding to get rid of theirs, certainly something to think about. And you can see that this one's flashing because the 3-minute mark was about to go, so I get a little notification that my ward's about to expire. But there's a visual difference. Do you see how there's a double green dot for sentry ward? There's a single green dot for my regular wards, and they won't be green dots if they're ally wards. I'll simply see that there is a ward there. I will see whether it's a double dot or a single dot. It just won't be green when it's not yours versus theirs. So I think that's for the wards. Well, one more ward thought. The opposite. So now I've talked about, hey, you've been pushed back, but what about when you're pushing successfully? How should you ward, right? So it's the exact mirror of what I did defensively. Once you've ripped their tower, at that point you want to start to get visibility onto their side of the map and give you and your team an advantage in pushing. So in this example, we've taken the left map point, right? So we should be focusing on A, taking down the right tower, or B, ripping down the left Phoenix. What I certainly like to do is really start to cripple their ability to start to rotate. I want to know if they've gone up through the right-hand side from, you know, my house's perspective to defend. So they came out of home, they came like this, they cleared these waves, they continue along their way, and then come over to stop your allies from aggressing on their left tower, us attacking right. You know, I don't want that to occur. I want my team to be aware that they're getting ready to hit them from behind. You know, had those been the enemy using that jump, they could have aggressed in a way that could have caused problems, particularly if they were tower diving. So that you certainly want to do that. Likewise, even with one tower down, doing that, warding both their high and low jungle. You know, again, I always talk about it from the perspective of my fountain. So this would be the enemy high fountain. This would be the enemy low fountain, meaning that it's lower, closer to my base. Reverse the thought process if I'm on this side, right? But that's where I'd want to drop. I'd want to drop the ward here. I'd want to drop the ward there. And then they can't leave their house without our team really having a very firm understanding of where they are. Why is that useful? Oh, look, Tante's out of position. Let's nuke her. Oh my gosh, and so many minions, and I flubbed that completely. But you get the point. The principle is you're looking for silly enemies that have pushed grossly out of position, so you and or your team can take advantage of that. So, with that said, I think I've covered a lot of the basics around Clash, warding, Apotheosis, how you should go and initially function. Now, you know what? Let's talk one more thing. In an ideal world where I'm on mic with my entire party and we all come out with 2 wards, unheard of, I realize, where should we be dropping those wards? you might be thinking, and I might have an answer for you. All right, well, let's talk about it from a role perspective. If I'm a mage, well, let's just talk. So the whole team comes out in a coordinated strike to deal with red, right? So you guys are lingering in and around this area. I don't care whether it's sort of lingering here, lingering here, somebody's warded red, somebody's warded here, somebody's warded your jungle. Those would be the first 3 that I would drop. But, you know, we have 10 wards to drop in that perfect scenario, so who should do what? Well, think about it like this. What are each of the wards doing, functionally speaking, for your team, right? So the assassin should be the one. Get off me, Chanje. I'm just trying to, here, you know what? Let's do this. Let's just return to lobby and redo it coming in from scratch. Where would be the ideal ward placements? And boy, I would kill to have a regular training mode where I could turn on and off enemies, I could turn on and off allies, I could turn on and off minion waves, so that you could go around and just experience where things are, what level you need to be to solo a tower, a phoenix, etc. But let's just pop right back in to Clash, easy again. So how might we do it? Well, let's talk about it from a role perspective. And we'll cover each of the roles. And these are just my initial thoughts. If I get revised thoughts, I'll redo this video, which is already ridiculously long, so I feel very confident that I will trim down the length as time goes. You know, what I really will do is pull in a friend, set up custom match 1v1. That way, both of us can be dropping wards and you can see all of this a little bit more clearly. But such is the cost of live streaming my initial thoughts here. So what I was trying to say is a Guardian should be protecting the enemy rotations through your jungle. So in an ideal world, I would say that they should drop your low jungle. Your Guardian should probably be the one to drop the red buff ward. So now the Guardian has prevented enemy rotations through your jungle and through the red buff. All right. Well, the assassin is going to want to aggress from the jungle. So ideally, so again, the Guardian would drop a ward right here. The Guardian would come up and drop a ward right here. The assassin would certainly drop one ward in this area so that they can aggress through the enemy jungle and look for those rotations. I find that when I'm a mage, I prefer to be in right lane so that I can keep farming this blue camp. So if I'm the mage, I should probably be warding this area. I could even do something super basic. If I ward right here, it's very clear if my tower is getting aggressed, regardless of whether enemies are in, whether ally minions are in lane, so that you have visibility before they've even put a single poke on your tower. So I would say that your mage, again, drop there and drop there. Now they're protecting their lane and their blue buff. No more stealing my stuff. Who should be with the mage? Well, because you want magic in both lanes and you want physical in both lanes, it's not going to be your Guardian. So your Guardian should break left. And that means that you want a tank over here, so that should be a warrior, right? So now we're just talking about initial team deployments. You drop a mage over here, you drop a warrior over here, that's good. You send the Guardian over here, that means your hunter should be there, right? So a guardian should always be protecting your squishies, your back line. If you're looking for a balance of magic and physical in both lanes, that means that you drop your hunter over here. So your hunter can drop a ward right here, and they can drop either a ward in the high enemy area like that. If they're feeling real spunky, they can start to drop like over to enhance the warding over here that your jungle started, right? They can drop a ward just right here to prevent these rotations, so they can go boink boink. So now your guardian has hit here and here. Your hunter has dropped here and here, which leaves your warrior free to drop. Or let's be a little bit more conservative. Let's say that your mage drops one ward, your hunter drops one ward, your assassin drops one ward, right? So we're saving each one of those a ward. Your guardian gets 2. That's 5 wards out. If your warrior simply drops 1, you've got 6 wards. So you've obviously want to hit the mid 3. And I've taught guardian hitting your high jungle, your red, your assassin hitting the enemy jungle. Your mage hits the right buff area, specifically, you know, if they're dropping here, if your assassin is dropping here, if your guardian is hitting here and here, your hunter can drop right there. So that's 3 in the mid, 4, 5. You have a spare ward. So your spare ward can be used for lots of different things. You can give better visibility, early warning, right, to their rotating onto their jungle. So this is the defensive, just, hey, no sneaking around. But if you drop another ward over in this area, you see when they immediately start entering here, or you just drop it right here on blue. Now you've warded everywhere from here on up into here because of that ward. That is all solid warding stuff. Obviously, if you have 10 wards, this whole map is lit up. In the bigger scheme of things, the reduction in deaths and the extra couple of kills that's going to get you and your team by having that visibility will definitively pay for itself. So, with that said, I'm going to end this video. I will end up trimming it down simply by redoing it, pulling into custom, but this will get a quick and dirty Clash map, thoughts and feelings, deployment, synergy, blah, 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 blah. If you found any of the information in this video, please click the like button. If you're not already a subscriber, I'd love it if you'd go ahead and click that button. Clicking the bell really helps me as a content provider. It also helps you. It gives you notification whenever I post new content. And ultimately, as I get more subscribers and more bell subscribers, I get some ability to monetize my channel. So those are things that are good for me. If you have questions, comments, fill them in below, and I'll do my best to respond. This is Hawkissimo signing out. Thank you for watching my Clash overview.